Hi guys, I'm Nick. Thanks for tuning into my channel. I like to build things. I build a lot for local live theater groups. In doing so, I can't necessarily bring the work to me. I have to bring my tools to the work. So I've kind of come up with this idea and I'm dubbing it my theater cart. Just a spot to keep all my tools organized in one place and easily accessible. I included an air compressor for brad nailers and light duty pneumatics, and also a couple different charging stations, and also a built-in area for my Makita batteries and all my cordless tools. There's a lot to this cart, so let's get started. I started off by purchasing a rolling tool cart from Home Depot. It was going to act as the foundation for my build. Once I was in SketchUp, I could lay out and design the components that I wanted to add to the cart. Here's how I imagine the two pieces coming together. The addition to the tool cart was going to account for a taller top. Being I'm 6 foot tall, it always seems like any assembly cart or workstation I use is just a little bit too short. This added approximately 4 inches to the work height. I was able to find recessed power strips. What was nice about these powered strips is they included powered USB plugs for charging tablets, phones, or other mobile devices. You can see the 2 USB plug-ins here, along with 3 outlets. Here's a miniature version of an air compressor station that I actually featured in my last video. There's a power switch for the air compressor, a gauge indicating tank pressure, a regulator, and a gauge indicating regulated pressure. It also has a female quick connect coupling. The 2 smaller holes on top are cup holders. The larger hole is for a trash can underneath. I was careful not to design it too wide so that it still fit through a standard commercial door opening. I took detailed measurements of the air compressor and other components to make sure they would fit appropriately. The 2 green squares represent retractable hose reels. The red cube represents the air compressor. The 2 blue boxes represent my Makita chargers and batteries. The 2 retractable reels would come through openings in the side of the cart. I started out by cutting the 3/4 inch plywood I was going to use for the base. It was just a piece I had laying around the shop. Just a little bit of sanding to clean it up. Then I removed all the drawers in the existing cabinet so that I could access the inside and remove the top. I then laid out and cut out both the side pieces. Me double checking to make sure that the air compressor was going to fit. Being the air compressor was going to be enclosed in the back, I wanted to be able to vent it. Being that this cart was going to be primarily used for theater, flat black paint was the color of choice. I glued and screwed some more MDF in locations to where I was going to mount the cabinet to the tool cart, but then also where the hose reels were going to attach to the MDF. After a quick coat of flat black paint. My original intention was to go flat black with the entire cart, but once putting in one of the drawers that the face was still left gloss black, I liked the look, so that's how I left it. I went with Flexzilla retractable reels because the bright green color on both was easy to see on a black stage floor, and I liked the flexibility of the air hose. The idea behind the electrical cord reel was that I was going to rewire the female end to a male end. That way the extension cord could get pulled from the cart, plugged into a wall, and then power the cart and the air compressor. Then I started to cut the openings for both the electrical cord and air hose. I ordered a couple extra of the cup holders. Once I cut the bottoms off, they made nice grommets for the retractable reels. I lined up the electrical cord reel and proceeded to mount it. I changed the stop on the electrical cord so that it didn't protrude outside the cabinet. I then proceeded to wire up outlets that ran to the electrical cord reel. One of the outlets is going to be operated by a switch for the air compressor. I then worked on completing the cabinet. Openings were cut for the power strips. Some of the pieces were attached with glue and nails. Other pieces, such as the back that I might have to remove at a later date, were just attached with screws. Test fitting the power insert. The project was coming along nicely. At this point, the gauges for the air compressor station were on back order. The back was then attached, and an opening for a door was cut to access the air compressor and battery chargers. I used a jigsaw to cut out the opening, and then attached the door with piano hinge. Sorry, I didn't get video of that. The door then needed a stop so that it didn't swing into the cabinet. I then bored a hole for a locking cam to keep the cabinet secure. The thought behind the chargers being inside the cabinet was I could charge the batteries overnight in a secured locked cabinet. During the day, I would have the chargers on top of the cart and accessible. In order to have the chargers out during the day and have the cabinet door closed, the door needed an opening for the wires. I marked out for a little flap that I was going to hinge with some of the remaining piano hinge. When the door is closed and locked, the flap cannot be opened. Simply flip the flap open and then you have access for your wires during the day. Then I marked and cut openings for the trash can and cup holders. A little tip for painting screws: push the screws into a piece of cardboard and then you can spray paint them. At this point, I was pretty excited to start adding some of the finishing touches. For the air compressor station, I started out with a piece of sheet metal. I laid out where I wanted my components to be located and marked them accordingly. It just so happened that the bottom of the cup holders I cut off earlier were the same size as the gauges I ordered. For the smaller holes, I just used a step bit. For the larger holes, I just used a metal cutting blade and a jigsaw. After all the openings were cut, I coated it in flat black paint. The reason for all the flat black paint is, in theater, flat black does not reflect stage lights. Now for the assembly of the air compressor station. The switch was to control the power to the air compressor, turning it on and off. I really like to use these push-in hose connectors paired with nylon tubing. The connectors are reusable and I've never had one leak. They make all sorts of these push-in connectors in different diameters, different shapes, reducers, and a variety of other styles. I removed the mounting ring on the regulator and installed it into the plate. A neat trick I've been doing for the last couple of years, when you want to mount a hose coupling to a plate, use the fitting that you attach to it to actually secure it to the plate. The use of a couple fender washers as spacers ensures that when the hose fitting is becoming tight, it's also becoming tight on the metal plate itself. The back-ordered gauges finally arrived. The gauges I ordered are known as panel mount gauges. There's a small mounting lip on the gauge itself, and then a U-shaped bracket on the back that tightens it to the panel. Once all the components were installed, I could start running the nylon tubing. The nylon tubing is great to work with. The little blue tool you see in my hand is just a guillotine style cutter. This section here will run to the air compressor, giving us tank pressure at the gauge. Out of this gauge we'll run to the regulator. Once out of the regulator, it'll run to the other gauge, indicating regulated pressure. Out of that gauge into the hose coupling, and then there's a T-fitting on that one to run to the air hose reel. It might seem complex, but it's actually very simple. Mounting it into the workstation was a tight squeeze. Luckily, all my measurements were correct. I used regular wood screws with finishing washers to mount the plate. Then I started to make up the fittings to attach it to the air compressor and the retractable hose reel. If you remember from the back of the air compressor panel, the T-fitting going to the first gauge runs to the air compressor. The T-fitting coming out of the hose coupling goes to the air hose reel. Just in case I forget whose cart it is. It only takes about 2 minutes for the air compressor to fill up from empty. The retractable air hose is already proven to come in very handy. Just pull it out, attach a brad nailer, and get to work. Can you tell I have a thing for tape measures? And of course I can't go anywhere without my coffee. Well, that about wraps up my custom mobile workstation, or as I'm calling it, my theater cart. I'm somewhat new here to YouTube, so let me know how I'm doing in that comment section below. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Also, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. You can also check me out at nickferry.com. Until next time, thanks for watching.